Hello, good evening. I'm Lisa Broom with the Monday, December 15th edition of the CBC Evening News. In our top story tonight, some of the Transport Board's retrenched workers are back on the job, albeit on contract. Kent Jerson has more on that story.
The Transport Board has confirmed that it has rehired 18 of the 250 workers who have been retrenched. Manager Marketing and Corporate Communications Linda Holder tells CBC the employees have been brought back to assist with the board's charter services. She says as contract workers, they will be utilized as needed, thereby allowing the board to operate in a more efficient manner than if it had hired full-time employees. Ms. Holder adds that this is being done on a trial basis and will be reviewed in 6 months to assess its effectiveness. She stresses that the selections were made in accordance with the Employment Rights Act, which meant that persons who were made redundant were given priority in recruitment, provided they met the requisite criteria. The 18 were also chosen after an analysis of their records, and the actual selection process was handled by the board's management and representatives of the workers' bargaining agent, the Barbados Workers' Union. Ms. Holder says the board is well aware of the challenges that come with unemployment and was happy to be in a position to offer work to some of the former employees, even if it is on a contract basis. Kent Jerson, CBC News.
Thanks, Kent. Well, the governor of the central bank remains confident that they are protecting the value of the Barbados dollar by maintaining its fixed exchange rate with the US dollar. Dr. Delal Worrell says it's the best way to guard against instability and ensure the public has confidence in the bank's economic policy. He gave his take on the issue at the opening of a 3-day seminar for economists and central bankers on monetary policy in small, very open economies.
The standard prescription of flexible exchange rates and interest rate policy geared to control inflation is problematic for the small, open economy. If the local currency depreciates, it triggers inflation, irrespective of interest rate policy. What should the central bank do? Clearly, pursue policies to protect the value of the domestic currency.
Government's policy for the fixed exchange rate is also receiving support from the featured speaker for the seminar, Professor Taron Kemraj of the New College of Florida. He's the author of a recently published book titled Money, Banking and Foreign Exchange Markets in Emerging Economies.
Where does fiat money get its value? Well, fiat money gets its value by having a shrewd central bank, okay, which can preserve the value of the currency. And the question of how does the central bank preserve the value of the currency is another discussion. I will come to that. Should it be that the central bank follow a Taylor rule function with an interest rate rule, as Dr. Worrell mentioned earlier, or should we have the exchange rate as a target and as an anchor?
Expect a significant increase in tourist activity over the next 4 months as the winter tourist season kicks into high gear. It officially started today, December 15th, and runs up until April 15th. Already, Barbados is recording a major increase in airlift from the UK, the US and Canada. There's also been a steady increase in the number of cruise ships making calls at the Bridgetown port. Just yesterday, 5 cruise ships were docked, including the Royal Princess. Meanwhile, some taxi drivers are telling CBC News that jobs are still hard to come by even with the increase in the number of cruise passengers coming in. Wayne Carter says many tourists now want to walk or take the bus.
It's still hard, but it's still some days good, some days bad. So many people actually want to walk to town, only 15 minutes walk. So when they come out to the port, they want to walk and go into the city, they want to taxi drivers. They make it harder for us. And when you actually get a price to go to the city, they actually want to burn on the price to like $2 on dollars, so everybody just keep back money for themselves. Last year was better than this year. You actually got to convince these people not to go on a tour because they don't really want to. They actually will take $2 and get the bus. So there's somebody that really interested in tourism or interested in history that will actually go.
Another taxi driver who did not want to be identified says he's not seeing the benefits of the increase in arrivals.
Most of the benefits are going towards the tour buses. Those guys are basically the persons reaping the rewards and we getting the scraps. Some guys ain't even getting a proper job. And the next time some of those said guys would get back in the port might be in two to 3 days' time. You know, so the benefits really aren't filtering down to the taxi driver.
The Chief Executive Officer of the Barbados Agricultural Society is not convinced that a framework is in place just yet for local hoteliers to capitalize on promised concessions for that sector. The comment from Government MP James Paul comes against the backdrop of those made by President of the Barbados Hotel and Tourism Association, Sunil Chatrani. And Mr. Paul says there's also some unfinished business under the recently signed Memorandum of Understanding between the BHTA and the BAS.
Under the MOU, there were some administrative mechanisms that will be put in place. And I am not sure that you're at an advanced stage at the moment to allow for the implementation of the whatever concessions that they are supposed to be there to work by January 2nd. So I found it a bit strange, really, that when I heard that these concessions will actually be in place by January 2nd. Also, too, we need to move speedily in terms of putting in the administrative mechanisms that are supposed to be there in order to allow for the transparent operation of the concessions if they are going to be granted.
9 days before Christmas, and there's mixed reaction from store owners about sales. While some big stores have seen an increase in traffic and have already recorded notable sales, others are expecting numbers to increase later in the week. However, smaller stores say numbers are down and vendors say the outlook is dim. Dale Ford explains.
There wasn't the usual hustle and bustle in Bridgetown, which is expected of the Christmas season in Barbados. However, there was a lot of browsing and some buying, but most of the big store owners we spoke to said it is early days yet.
So we are getting some good sales, but I want to say that not as much as we would have gotten last year. But I'm looking and I'm hopeful that by the next 9 days that we will pick up and do even a little bit more.
Jason says in light of the economic situation, they've been offering deals to customers and these will continue into the Christmas season.
It's been up and down, as you know, the season is like that. But we're expecting that a lot of people are looking. Even yesterday we had some, of course we had some shoppers. A lot of people are saying, it's always a last-minute rush. We're expecting that from Thursday onwards. As people get pay, it's going to be a bumper season, I think.
At Abed's Managing Director Eddie Abed said while there was a lot of foot traffic in November, that did not translate into sales. But he says so far December looks hopeful.
December has started with an absolute crackerjack bang. It's been very busy in terms of foot traffic as well as sales. And we're hopeful that we could claw back some of the downward slope that we saw in November during December. Bajans are extremely frugal and they're making wise choices. They are very value driven. And as you and I both know, meeting money hasn't been paid out. A lot of returns from income tax hasn't come back as yet. And I think bonus money in particular has been paid. So we're extremely hopeful for the next 9 days.
At Cape Shepherd, location manager Andrew Wilkinson says the store has taken on extra staff to handle the rush, which they anticipate in the next few days. Some of that extra staff can be found in gift wrapping, where there has been an increase in traffic. He further notes that there has been a significant increase in the number of applications for Cape Shepherd credit and applications for an increase in the credit limit.
Customers have been asking for discounts and specials, and we have answered their call as it relates to the procurement department, where we're offering customers who select 3 items within that department. The third item, we're giving them 25% off. In our pages department, on selected books, when customers purchase 2 books, they get a third free. And in departments like toys and linens and decorations, those departments are doing well. We've just set up our gift wrap center, and we've seen an increase.
But while the big store owners were forthcoming about their sales, several of the boutique owners we approached declined to speak on camera. All of them said times are tough and they do not expect it to get any better. These sentiments were echoed by the street vendors we spoke to, who complained that the police were constantly moving them from selling at storefronts or on the streets, shuttling them into alleyways. The ones we spoke to said they did not have permits.
I think things are going to be worse. Things are not going to pick up. That's what I think.
Dale Ford for CBC News.
Dale, thanks. Finance Minister Chris Sinclair is to deliver a ministerial statement in the House of Assembly tomorrow morning on the state of the economy. And joining us live to give her take on the move is CBC's resident political analyst, Maureen Holder. Maureen, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening,
Season's
Lisa.
greetings to you.
Same to you. Same to you.
Thank you. Well, Maureen, first, tell us, what is your interpretation of a ministerial statement rather than a budget?
Well, I don't believe there's any reason to be concerned at this point in time. It's been done by parliaments all over the world. I would imagine that we're to be more concerned over what he says, what the minister presents tomorrow. I would imagine that he would have to say, I would think that he would have to bring some Yuletide goodies, as well as paint a picture of the current economic situation of the country. And when I said Yuletide goodies, I'm talking about, speak to the whole issue of the tax refunds and tax rebates that people are anticipating so that they can go and do their Christmas shopping and make the preparations for their Christmas. So it would be politically expedient to have that sort of presentation, as well as set the context of where we're going. In other words, set the economic forecast for the country at this point in time. And it is particularly useful following the IMF consultations that we had. You know that the IMF came and they were more concerned about the collection of taxes, and you would be aware that our tax receipts are much lower, a record low in all time. So I would imagine that the whole issue of low tax receipts, if we have low tax receipts, the government will have less revenue to work with. So he's going to have to speak to the issues of the deficit, public spending. He's going to have to address employment. He's going to have to address the public finances in terms of earnings and so on. But generally speaking, he has to talk about the current debt situation that Barbados currently finds itself in. So there are a number of things that I anticipate that the minister would have to cover tomorrow. I can't say for sure what he's going to bring, but I can say that there's no reason to be concerned as to whether he bring a statement, ministerial statement, as opposed to a budget. It's something that is done. And I would imagine that he will make that budget presentation sometime going down the road, maybe early in next year, maybe the first quarter of next year.
You talked about debt and issues like that, but with a shortfall of about $174 million in the deficit, can we expect any belt tightening measures?
Well, I don't imagine that he's going to bring any new taxes, Lisa. I can't imagine that he would. I can't imagine that he would also bring any new incentives, because one could easily make the argument that if he were going to do that, then he would need to bring a budget. I don't know if in our law it is stipulated that a minister must bring a budget. I know the estimates are a requirement, but if there's a law that requires for the minister to bring a budget, then I would imagine that he will be informed. But at this point in time, I would think that if he were going to bring new taxes, he would bring a budget or make a budget presentation. But all in all, his budgetary responsibility would include outlining to the nation if the government long-term economic plans, how they're going, if they've been working, what we need to do, the types of adjustments, prospective adjustments that we would need to make. So we'll wait. I will anticipate what he will say tomorrow, as all of Barbados would anticipate. Again, I hope he will bring some Yuletide goodies and address the whole situation of the tax rebates, which I expect that he might do.
Looking forward, what do you think is the outlook for Barbados going into 2015?
There's some, according to the Central Bank report, there's some gradual progress, incremental, small, but nonetheless some. And one may make the argument that slow in coming, but I don't necessarily subscribe to the slow in coming. You heard from the head of that's the RBTT bank talking about Barbados's likely projected growth. The minister would have to speak to the issue of growth, where we stand. Are we poised for growth? We would have had, now bear in mind, they have to address the whole question of savings from public spending, because they would have taken some measures to reduce government's expenditure. So we would want them to give an account of whether or not there have been any savings with respect to public expenditure. So all in all, there's a whole framework of things that the minister has to address so that the nation will get a better sense of where we're going, if we're poised to take off, and by how far. I mean, you're asking him to make forecasts, and I believe that's part of his responsibility. But again, a lot would depend on how he's able to spell out what policies that are in place to see that kind of growth or that kind of leap forward into next year and onto a more stable economic climate. But things are happening, and I will leave it up to the ministers to say what are those things.
Last question quickly. Do you think the ministerial statement as opposed to a budget has anything to do with the, I think, the 19-month plan that Barbados was on?
Well, it might. It could be. I don't want to presume for the minister. The minister would know why he's doing that. As I said, contained in the ministerial statement would be a whole number of issues that would normally be covered in the budgetary presentation, except there's not going to be a whole lot of debate. You know, the budget, there's a lot of debate.
And it was said that it's a matter of trying to duck debate on the budget. We only have a short time left, so what's your take on that?
I mean, that's an argument that could be made. But like I said, I can't presume for the minister. When he makes his presentation, we'll have to sit back and look at the kind of things, the measures that he outlined, whether he's addressed growth, unemployment, public expenditure, earnings, etc. So I'll wait and see.
Maureen, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
CBC's resident political analyst, Maureen Holder. We'll have more news after the break, but we want to get your take on this question. Do you believe Barbadians will be spending big dollars this Christmas? Text yes or no to short code 8111. We'll have the result for you at the end of the news.
Upgrade to data all the way. Get the Huawei Y330 with a great free gift. Upgrade Christmas with Line.
Deck the halls with Christmas spirit. La 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 la. Make your Christmas bright and merry. La 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 la. We're getting in the spirit at My Cave Shepherd. Crossing off your list at My Cave Shepherd. The best Christmas gifts at My Cave Shepherd. Meet me for memories at My Cave Shepherd. Unwrap all your Christmas treasures. La 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 la. Meet me here at My Cave Shepherd.
Hi, I'm Red Plastic Bag. Anyone who knows me knows I don't like cold. Sunshine reigns in my country. I love it.
Christmas comes but once a year, and at Sewing World and Black Image Cosmetique, the new stock is here, including curtains in many designs, sizes and colors. Bathroom sets, kitchen sets and mats are just a few of the many items. Downstairs there are flowers, gift items, gents and ladies and children's clothing. In the Black Image Cosmetique are toiletries, confectionery, healthcare products and hair products. Come to Sewing World Department Store and Black Image Cosmetique, number 4 and 5 Swan Street, for service, satisfaction and savings.
With high-quality service and its invaluable contribution to trade, industry and commerce, it brings international recognition to Barbados and continues to be the best in class.
90% of the people in Barbados said, do you think you can build a wall out there in the sea? As fast as you build it, the sea is going to knock it down. Well, it's been there now 50 years, and as far as I know, it's still standing there.
And the port now became a center of industrial activity in Barbados.
This is the story of Barbados' sea portal, the port of Bridgetown, and it's coming soon to CBC TV8.
The number of Chikungunya transmissions in Barbados has leveled off in the last 3 to 4 weeks. But Chief Medical Officer Dr. Joy St. John says this does not mean that Barbados has got past the outbreak. The latest epidemiology report at the beginning of the month showed 84 new cases and just over 1,500 suspected cases.
On a cautious note, it has been waning, but I'm not going to be calling the epidemic over by a long shot. And also, I need to tell you that even though we depend on notifications and our systems, we're also aware that there are several people who haven't bothered to go to a doctor. There are people who are just taking their Panadols and following the advice we've been giving. So we know that there are numbers of persons who have not come forward to us and will not come forward. So we're being cautious about calling it over.
Dr. St. John also told CBC News while testing protocols have changed, private and public sector doctors are still required to report suspected cases, keeping the ministry abreast of the extent of the outbreak.
We look for numbers of cases of undifferentiated fever, which is essentially fever without a clear cause, and that would require testing. And for most of the instances now that we're having the Chikungunya outbreak, and the fact that we're also having elevated numbers of dengue cases, it would be either Chikungunya or dengue. So that series of numbers that we've been following all these months through the epidemiology system also lets us know what is happening with the outbreak.
The CMO says another bit of good news is that the mosquito population across the island has not increased, although the numbers are still too high. She's advising the public to maintain their surveillance to control the Aedes aegypti mosquito population. Local senior citizens have been assured that they will always be a priority for government, particularly under the Ministry of Social Care. Minister Steve Blackett says the island recorded 50 centenarians this year, and he says they were lucky to have aged in a blessed environment like Barbados. He was speaking at a luncheon hosted by the National Committee on Aging at the St. David's Church for seniors from polyclinics around the island.
You are very much in our consideration as a government when we are planning our national budget. Your comfortable existence in this country is of paramount importance to us as national planners and legislators. It is with this in mind that the National Committee on Aging was established, and that committee was to superintend matters directly concerning your welfare and your well-being. I want to assure you, as Minister with responsibility for matters concerning the elderly, that you have a reliable friend in me as Minister and also the members of the National Committee.
We'll have regional news next, but first a reminder that we want to hear from you on this question. Do you believe Barbadians will be spending big dollars this Christmas? Text yes or no to short code 8111. We'll have the result for you at the end of the news. And remember, you can also